May God bless the reading. A burglar had broken into a home, and upstairs was an elderly woman by herself, and she had heard a noise downstairs, and not having any weapons in the house of any kind, she grabbed her Bible and started down the stairs. And she noticed a shadow along one of the walls, and she yelled out, "Acts 2:38." And with that, the burglar froze. And the elderly lady grabbed her phone and dialed 911, and the police were there in just a matter of a few moments. And they found the burglar still frozen where he had stood. And they came and they handcuffed him, and they asked him, he said, "Why didn't you run? Why did you stick around?" He said, "Didn't you hear that lady? She said she had an axe and 238 revolvers. I wasn't moving." Fear has a way of paralyzing us, doesn't it? As we go into the Easter season, we're moved forward into the day. Last week we talked about the morning. This is the night of the first day of the week. And we have a picture in the scriptures of the disciples, and they have gathered in a room somewhere in Jerusalem. And we have to think what must have been going through their minds. This person that they had followed, their mentor, their rabbi, their teacher, the one they thought was the Son of God, had been crucified, had been beaten, had been buried, and now his body's missing. Surely the Jews are going to come after them. I'm sure they were afraid. The story tells us what? The doors were locked for fear of the Jews. Fear had overcome them. They sat there afraid. Fear ever overcome you? Fear is a mighty powerful emotion. You know, it's the most, probably dictates our actions more than anything else. Fear. Not faith. Fear, which is kind of strange. Fear. We all are afraid of something at some point, sometime. We even give it fancy names now. Called what? Phobias, right? There's monophobia, that's fear of being alone. School phobia, that's fear of going to school. Theophobia, fear of God. There's even a phobia for fear of bald people, but we're not even going to go into that because I don't think it's appropriate. But we call them these fancy names. But basically it breaks down to fear. And we're all afraid of something. Are you afraid of anything?
My wife.
There's a difference between fear and respect. And my dad always told me, you respect the lawnmower, you don't fear it. Right? So you just have to have respect for something. You can't get those confused. But but fear. I mean, some people fear the dark, right? Some people fear heights. I'm afraid to death of heights, but I attack it every day. I climb those ladders at work and try not to look down. If I look down, I'm in trouble. But as long as I just imagine I'm somewhere level, I'm fine. But it's a fear. It's legitimate. I'm afraid of heights. Dark places. Some people are afraid of the dark. At least as a child. Anybody here was afraid of the dark as a child? Some people are still afraid of the dark. Yeah, it's a legitimate fear, right? Anybody put a weapon next to the bed as a child, like a little bat or anything like that? That's me. I had a little Louisville slugger I put next to my bed. I don't know what I was going to do with it, but I had one just in case. But fears are very real. They're very real to people. I mean, as a child, me and my brother used to try to scare each other at any chance we got. I mean, I can remember times my brother would hide under the bed for 30 minutes before he knew I was going to be in there, just so when I sat down on the bed, he could reach out and grab my leg. And it was all fun and games. We thought it was funny. We were just trying to get back at each other. But fear is not funny to a lot of people. It's very real, and it's very paralyzing. There are some people who are afraid to go out of their house and will never leave their house. And fear has a way of blocking us off from the outside world, from other people, from other things, and from God's plan for our life. Fear is a very, very powerful thing. But what does Jesus do when he enters the room? What is the first thing he says to them? It's very important.
Be not afraid.
Peace be with you. Peace be with you. The very first thing he says to them is, peace be with you. That's a special kind of peace when it's coming from God. God's telling you, peace be with you. In other words, I know you're afraid. I know you don't totally understand what's going on. I know you don't totally understand what's happened in the last few days. Your circumstances seem to overwhelm you. They seem to be getting the best of you right now. But I'm here to tell you, calm down. I got this. It's okay. I am who I said I was. I've risen from the dead. You see me right here. You see the nails in my hands, the hole in my side. I am the risen Son of God. Everything that you thought is true. Now you may not totally understand why it came to pass like it came to pass, but know that I am here and I'm the Son of God, and I'm telling you everything is going to be all right. It was the very first thing he said. And it had a calming effect on the disciples. And you know, we live in that moment too, don't we? We should grasp that moment too. Because as children of God, God says, peace be with you. You don't need to be afraid. He has overcome death. There is nothing else to overcome. Death is not the final word. We have nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. But yet we don't embrace it. We don't grab it like we should, do we? We kind of get it. We don't grab that like we should, do we? We're afraid. Anybody ever get afraid now? You're not children anymore. You get afraid. You're walking down a dark alleyway, you're not afraid. We still get afraid sometimes. But some people grab it and run with it and understand it. Some people don't. It's like, I remember a little boy, his mom sent him down to the basement to get the broom, and the little boy was scared to death of the basement because you've got all kinds of monsters living in the basement. Everybody knows that. And he was scared to death. The light wasn't working, and he just kind of stood at the top of the steps and looked down there, and he looked and looked and looked. And his mom said, go on down there and get that broom. Jesus is down there. He'll take care of you. And so the little boy walked down the steps a few steps, and he looked around. And he said, Jesus, since you're down there, I'll bring the broom on up. That's kind of the way we want to handle it, right? Sometimes. But fear is very real. But we don't have to fear. We can go down into those dangerous places and know that God's with us. That doesn't say you need to be foolish and act foolish. But we should know in our everyday lives, we don't have anything to fear. Because God is with us. Peace be with you. There's something else I saw in that room. I saw forgiveness when I looked in that room. Do you notice what Jesus didn't say when he came in the room? You know, he didn't say, where have you guys been? Where did you go? You took off and left me. You left me hanging. Where have you been? You don't hear any of that, do you? What does he say? Peace be with you. Peace be with you. He doesn't say you sold me out. He doesn't say you took off and left me. He says peace be with you. You know, the things of the past are what? The past. He's looking to move forward. What's behind him is behind. There's forgiveness in that room. You know, we should learn from that. A lot of times we don't want to put things behind us, do we? We want to let people know, you hurt me. I want you to know you hurt me. And you should know that, and you should feel bad about it. You know, do we get like that sometimes? We want to make sure that they know, we'll forgive you, but you need to know you hurt me. We get like that. I remember the story of a mom, and she had a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old, and she heard scream coming from the bedroom, and she ran in there, and she found that the 2-year-old little girl had grabbed the 7-year-old boy's hair and had it tightly in her hand. And he was screaming, let it go, let it go. And so the mom went over there and pried the girl's fingers out of his hair and said, you know, tried to explain, but she don't know better. She doesn't know that hurts. It'll be okay. She don't understand what's going on there. She don't understand it hurts. And so he quit crying, and she ventured back towards the kitchen. And she got halfway there, and she heard the little girl screaming bloody murder. And she ran back in there and says, what is going on? The boy said, she knows now. She knows now. But we don't need to be like that. We don't need to let other people know. We need to take our cue from Jesus. We just put the past behind us and let's move forward. He tells them, peace be with you. And then what does he tell them? He said, I got a job for you. Right? He sends them out. He lets them know. He gives them an assignment. I'm sending you out to spread the word. As God sent me here to spread the news, I'm sending you out to be my representatives to the world. You don't trust people with a big job like that if you haven't forgiven them, do you? You don't give your enemies a key job like that, would you? Anybody? No. Unless you're trying to set them up for failure, maybe you might do that. And I'm going to tell you what, that might have seemed like a very intimidating job. You think about that, 12, well, 11, well, Thomas wasn't there, that's 10. 10 people, and they're supposed to spread the message. You think that sounds a little overwhelming? You go tell the world. All right, we're just going to take this side of the church. You're responsible to go tell the whole world about Jesus. And all of Christianity's existence is on you. You up for it? Ready to go? Somebody get that door. That must have seemed overwhelming, don't you think? An overwhelming proposition. But I can tell you what, what's impossible for man is not impossible for God. And you know, over 2 billion people today say they're followers of Christ. That started with 10 men in the room. 2 billion. That's a lot of folks. That's a lot of money. That's a whole lot of folks. And that's why you sit here today. It all started in that little room where Jesus gave them an assignment to go forward and spread the word. So in that room, what started off as fear has now turned to a room filled with faith. You know, they can't exist together. You know that, right? They can't occupy the same space. Fear and faith can't occupy the same space. Let me give you an example. Let's say the air in this glass represents your faith. The water in this bottle represents fear. As fear enters you, it leaves less and less and less and less room for your faith. But as fear leaves, and I can't drink all that, but you get the point. But as fear leaves, faith re-enters. You know, we can't, if you really believe God is in control, that God has this, that He was in control yesterday, He's in control today, and He's in control of tomorrow, then you shouldn't fear it. You shouldn't worry about it. It should not take up a second of your time. We should not be creatures of fear. The first thing He said was, peace be with you. The first thing He said was, let's calm down. First thing He said was, I got this. It's okay. I'm the Son of God. I'm here. I'm alive. I have risen. It's okay. Pretty comforting words. Right? And He sets the whole ball in motion. He moves forward. And the disciples get excited. They're so excited they go and tell the very first person, who is Thomas. He wasn't there, right? And what happens to the very first person they tell? He rejects him. Let that be a clue. Sometimes you're going to get rejected when you're spreading the good news. He gets rejected. He doesn't believe. Do you think he thought maybe he was on candy cam or something? You know, he comes back from being out and Jesus was here, you missed him. Yeah, whatever. Where's the camera? You know. Do you think he thought they were just playing a joke on him? You know. No, seriously, Jesus was here. No, yeah, whatever. No. Not till I see it. Not till I put my hands in his hands. Put my hands in his side. Well, I believe. That's a pretty tough setup. That's pretty tough to be questioning God like that, isn't it? That's pretty big demands to be making of God. I'll believe in you, God, when you show up and I can put my hand in your side and my fingers in where your nails were, then I'll believe. That's pretty big. But a week later, Jesus shows up. And what does he say?
My son and God.
What does he say? What's the first thing he says? Peace be with you. Peace be with you, right? And then he invites him. He says, come on. He doesn't rebuke him. He doesn't call him Doubting Thomas. He doesn't say, hey, Doubting Thomas, come here. That's not a thing. Jesus didn't hang Doubting Thomas on Thomas. That's something we put on. That's something we label. He was no more doubting than the other ones. They didn't think Jesus had risen either until Jesus showed up and he saw him. I think we're all doubters at some point. And I think that's why we call him Doubting Thomas. We kind of reflect our own feelings about ourselves at times. Doubting Thomas. You know. First time you heard the story of Jesus, did you say, oh yeah, that's for me. I believe everything in there without hearing it. How many times did you have to hear it before you actually came into that relationship with Christ? So maybe we're all Doubting Thomases to some degree. But he doesn't. He doesn't rebuke him. Again, he's moving forward, right? And he comes and he lets Thomas feel his, put your hand in my side. Feel the nail holes. I'm real. I'm real. I am the risen Savior. I don't want there to be any doubt in your mind because I got a job for you too. I want you to go out and spread the word. And you know, for being a doubter, Thomas did a tremendous job. If you go on and read about his mission work in the India section of the world, tremendous mission over there. For being a doubter. Peace be with you. How many of you believe that? Peace be with you. How many of you rest in that tranquility? That God is in control. How many of you say, you know, it's going to be okay. You know, we're all going to face situations that are going to rattle our faith. That are going to be tough. There are going to be times. I mean, I can assure you, if you haven't experienced that, you will experience that at some point, where it kind of shakes you a little bit. And you're like, wow, this is a lot. This is a lot. And you're going to end up in a room just like the disciples. But the question is, are you going to sit in that room in fear, or are you going to sit in there with your faith? Do you believe? Or do you kind of believe? Or do you want to believe? Or do you believe? Jesus said, peace be with you. He said it to his disciples. He says it to you. To each and every one of you. Peace be with you. Because you have to have that inner peace if you want to share it with someone else. And that was the job that he gave his disciples. Church name is Disciples of Christ. We are the followers of Christ. It is our mission to spread that word. It is not just the pastor's mission to preach the gospel. It's each and every one of your mission to spread the word. Now, how do I do that? What does that look like? What does that look like? Does that mean we all take turns to get up here and talk? Not necessarily. That'd be a very long Sunday and we'd probably miss the buffet. So it's probably not recommended, but I will gladly give you the pulpit anytime you would like to come up here and share a word. That's fine with me. No. But you encounter people every day. Everyday folks just like yourself. And you should be the embodiment of Christ. Your actions should mirror His. You should treat people with kindness. You should treat people with forgiveness. You should treat people with love and understanding. We should be a humble group. Servants are humble. We're called to be humble. We're not better than anybody else. We just worship a perfect God. We're still a broken people. We still make mistakes. If you don't make mistakes anymore, God bless you. I'm so happy for you, and I want to follow you around for a while just to see how you live so I can be like that. Because we all make mistakes. But that's what we're called to do. We're called to live a life that proclaims to the world that Jesus has risen. He has risen indeed. Amen.